Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today's tutorial is going to be focused on channel banners. Now, channel banners are banners you can upload into a channel within your server, and there is no requirement at all for uploading these. I'm seeing a lot of people ask questions. How do I upload this? Where do I upload it at? It's just an image you upload to Discord like you would any other. And then underneath this banner image, you type out some text, then you have another banner, and then more text, and so on and so forth. The only banner type tutorial that's on this channel that you need any kind of special unlocks for would be the server banners, which you'd see in the top left at the top of the channel list, or server invites. Server banners being unlocked at tier 2 of boosting, and server invites being unlocked at tier 1. And once again, channel banners, upload it like you would any other image. Now hopefully that is now clear and there will be no more questions about that. And so we can go ahead and proceed with the tutorial. So this design is rather simple in the sense that it can really go into any genre of community. There's no anime characters, there's no game characters, there's nothing in here to really lock it to one community style. Now some stuff could be considered a bit extra. For example, these little dots here, those there, and these right here. And you can of course feel free to leave those out, and it'll make the design a bit more simple, which is fine because that's another aesthetic that could fit great for your community. So without any further delay, I'm going to jump right into the tutorial itself. We're going to start off by going to File, New, and we're going to have the width at 750 and the height at 350. Click Create. Now, as usual, we're going to create a new layer by clicking this plus, go to the backgrounds, and click Delete, or right-click Delete Layer, whichever you prefer. I'm going to be using a lot of keyboard shortcuts as I normally do, but I'll go ahead and say those out loud as I use them. Next, we're going to come over to our rectangle tool. We're going to drop this down. Don't worry too much about the size right now because we're going to go to properties and make some adjustments. Now, if you do not see properties on this right side, we're simply going to go over to Window, scroll down to Properties, and click that. And once it's clicked, it's going to pop up right over here. You can either leave it there or drag it over and dock it to the side. It's up to you, whichever you prefer. Let's go ahead and make sure there is no stroke. And as for the color, we'll be using this 404 or 404 C59. Click OK. Perfect. Now we're going to come over to the width. We're going to make this 574 and the height at 160. Now, as usual with my tutorials, I make the canvas or my workspace larger than the actual design that I'm working on. This is so I have extra space to wiggle around or move into if I need to, and I'm not pushing the boundaries right from the get-go, because then I'm going to be constantly adjusting the canvas size, and that's just a waste of time. Alright, so let's go ahead and do Control G and group this up. We'll call this the base area. We'll create a new layer, drag that above. We'll do Control G again, and we'll call this the banner area. I'm going to skip some parts of the base for now and just get the banner created so we know the general dimensions or the outline for the rest of the banner. Let's go ahead and right click on the eyeball and make this red. Right click on this one, let's say green. I'm going to come over to this layer, go over to my rectangle tool. I'm going to drop this down. Sizing doesn't matter at the moment because we're going to adjust that. So let's go over here and make sure there is no stroke. As for the color, we'll be using the following: C8E3FF. Click OK. Now we're going to go over to our sizing over here, and we're going to make this 112. And as for the height, we will make this 165. So we actually got it just about perfect. Now we're going to go ahead and move this over. I'm holding shift as I do so, so it moves perfectly across this x-axis. Now if I hold shift and then move my mouse up while I drag it, it's going to lock to the y-axis, but for now I just need it on the x until I have it about there. Now I'll adjust this down a tad. I can also use my arrow keys, so if I'm on the move tool, I use my arrow keys to move it by 1 pixel. And I am rather happy with that there. Now we're going to go ahead and right click this, go to our blending options, drop shadow, 32, 4, 14, and 8. So I remembered my settings from when I did the initial mockup. Let's go ahead and call this the base. Let's collapse that. Now we're going to have a quick detour. I'm going to go over to this rectangle, right click, blending options. Now this step is completely optional. So as you know, Discord has two theme settings, light mode or dark mode. Now I suppose if you add this stroke, which I'm about to add, and as a white stroke, it's not going to show up at all or barely show up in light mode, so you can just leave it on. But if you prefer not to have it at all, that's fine as well. Let's go to stroke, let's put it on whites, and then sizing at 3 pixels. So that's okay. Let's go ahead and collapse that. Let's actually call this the base. Now return over here. We're going to go over to our pen tool. We're going to click up top, down to about, let's go even a little bit sharper. There, hold shift as I click, so it clicks in, so it goes in a straight line, and then shift click again, right click, make selection, okay, shift F5. As for the color, we'll be using that blue. Click OK, go to the rectangular marquee tool, right click, deselect. Now, Control J, Control T, flip the width up here at the top, add a minus to the front of it, and then we shall drag this across using the move tool and holding shift. As you can see, this is lined up as well. I'll go ahead and merge this down. I'll call this the flaps, probably not the best name. I'm going to go into blending options, color overlay, sample that blue, but then I'm going to make it a tad darker. Because the idea of this here is that they're behinds and sort of wrapping around the back of the banner. Now of course that isn't actually happening, but it's the visual effect we're trying to go for. So we want to darken these just a tad. Click OK, and that's perfect. Alright, so I went ahead and opened up a few assets that I'll be using. The Discord logo, the noise texture, and some of these little dots. Now we're going to start off with the Discord logo. Now keep in mind, for your own purposes, the point of this little banner here is to drop an image that sort of indicates what the banner is about. So for rules, you might maybe place a hammer there, those sort of elements for this section. I'm just using the Discord logo because it was basically just the first image I saw in my file list, but you get the idea of what other options that you have for this section. As for the coloring, we're going to right click, go to blending options, color overlay, and we're going to make it the same color as the backgrounds, so click OK there, once again, then right click, rasterize layer style, go over to the noise texture, bring that in. Let's do Control T and adjust this a bit. That should be good. Let's swap this to soft lights and bring that down to 8%. Let's go ahead and clip that on. We'll call this the icon. We'll call this the noise texture. And then we will make some fine adjustments to this to get it where we want it. Look at this nonsense. I never understand how I managed to lock it into this sort of X shape. Okay, never mind, I'll use my arrow keys. It doesn't want to move normally. Alright, there we go. Now we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go over to our text tool. We're going to drop this down, and we'll call this rules. Now, I'm just basically duplicating the same thing I'm going to have over here. Another option for you, if it fits, is the name of your community. For example, I could put Suke here, or if I was a gaming thing, Gamers United. Just an example. But if your name is too long for your community, then just duplicating the same name for the banner works as well. So with that out the way, we can go ahead and come over to the base once again, create a new layer. We're going to go ahead and grab the pen tool. I'm going to come over to the corner about there, click, click, and then shift across. Make selection, click OK, shift F5, go to color, and we'll be using the following. FF CBC A. Click OK there, marquee tool, right click, deselect, and then clip that on. Now we can go ahead and name this the colored corner, and we are left with one more step. We're going to come over to this right here, drag that in, make sure this is also clipped onto the base, come over to color dodge, and bring the opacity down to 80%. Now we're going to move this around, probably going to have to resize it, just like so, and then move it until you have a few of the particles in there. Alright, that should be good. We can go ahead and call this the dots. Now you can't really see too many of the dots, but the idea isn't to overload this little section here, but just to add a little bit of a finishing touch, so to say. Now maybe we can, no, it's going to bring too many in. Okay, with this little flag out of the way, we can go ahead and move on to this base section. I'm going to copy this noise texture just because it's already here and ready to use, and I'm going to collapse the banner area, clip the noise texture onto the base, and now we are good to actually start working on it. So I'm going to make this red, then I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to come over to my rectangle tool, come over to this left corner, and start drawing a rectangle. Now make sure there is no stroke and that the fill is that same pink red color we were using earlier. For the width, we're going to put this at 10 pixels, and then for the height, we're going to put it at 38. Let's go ahead and adjust that up. Now we're just going to duplicate this, Control J, drag that over, Control T. Let's move this until it's only 2 pixels wide. Okay. And now once again Control T and drag this up to take up this entire left space. There we go. And we can go ahead and call this the left corner fill, and then left corner line. And just to keep ourselves organized, let's clip that real quick, and let's make these orange, because we are going to be making a lot of additions to this background area, so it's important that we color code what we're working on, so when we come back in the future and inevitably make additions or swap colors, we want to be able to quickly find the correct layers that we need. I am going to make one small detour. That's going to be up here. I'm going to create a new layer outside of any of these existing folders. I'm going to do Control G. We'll call this miscellaneous decor. And we're going to return to this again at the ends once we've got this background area finished. But we are going to make a quick pit stop and add this little pink shape over here. So we're going to go over to our rectangle tool, and we're just going to drop this down, and from here we're going to make a couple adjustments. First, no stroke, pink fill. The width, we're going to have it at 47, and then the height, we'll have it at 22. And then we're going to adjust this until it fits that corner. Now we want it to cover this white space as well, so cover that to the border there and to the border there, and it should just overlap this blue banner. And we can call this the right corner overlap. Now we can go ahead and close that folder for the time being and return to the base. Now at the base, we're going to create a new layer. We're going to go over to our color selector and we're going to use the following color, 36404B. Click OK. Now come over to our pen tool and we're going to click at about here to start and about there to finish. Now I might actually go over even a bit further and we're going to add a slight curve to this shape, just like so. Now shift click all the way around until you have this whole area boxed in. Now right click, make selection, click OK, shift F5, color, and choose that color we just picked out. Click OK, and you will see that now drop in. Now this could take a couple adjustments to get it right or looking as I did with the original mockup. And the original mockup is the one I'm going to have available down. So with this down, we'll call this the dark base. That's essentially what it is. And here we have a fork in the road. So there's two ways you can approach to make those little shapes inside this dark area. One, either create a new layer, sample the backgrounds, and make it on top, still so that the noise affects it and it looks as if this darker area has been cut into, or you can just directly cut into the dark area. Now there isn't really a right or a wrong method to this. Taking it at the approach of cutting right into the dark is going to leave you with less layers, hence cleaner workspace. Or if you just drop on top, you're going to have more layers, but you have more room for adjustment in the future. I'm going to take the approach of having them on top of this space here, so I can come back and adjust it if I need to, but it's really up to you how you want to go about doing this. So I'm going to create a new layer, then I'm going to come over to my colors, and I'll be using the same color we used for the initial base area, 404C59. Now I'm going to come over to my pen tool, and this can take some playing around with to get perfect. So I'm going to show you how I do a couple of these, and then I'll go ahead and skip ahead to the completed product. I'm going to first click here, then I will click down there, and I'm going to add a slight curve. To do that, I'm holding on, or I'm still holding my left mouse button down as I drag this around. I'm holding Alt to move this up. Now I'm going to click up here, same thing, a slight curve, drag that back, shift click. Now I'm going to come down to about here, and once again we will curve that to the center, and that might be actually too thick at the bottom. We'll see in a second. And then I'm going to come over here, and same thing, just a slight curve. Yep, that is definitely way too thick. But now that you see how it's done, I'm going to make selection, shift F5, color, and use that lighter color. Okay, and then as you can see, that's kind of how it looks. It actually didn't turn out too bad. I might just, no, I'll go ahead and fix that. But I'll do a couple of these and then I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. I skipped those steps just because I showed you how to do it. And if I go one by one, it's going to add at least 5 or 6 extra minutes to the tutorial. So with those out the way, once again, just a quick recap. Pen tool, click, hold, or click up here, and then don't let go once you click. Just move it like this, click, click, move, then to let go, click, click, don't let go, and then move it like so. And then close it off, right click, make selection, Shift F5, fill, and then OK, and then marquee tool, right click, deselect. And do a couple of those, and it'll take some tinkering, of course, to get it looking how you want. Next step is we're going to add in a little bump over on this right side. So this bump is going to use that same dark color as before. So grab your pen tool, and we're going to click right about there. Then we'll come over to around here, and it's not quite far enough, about there, and make this a little rounded. And then we'll come down here, and we'll round this little top as well. Then come all the way around, right click, make selection, OK, Shift F5, and make sure we are using the darker of the two, 36404B. Click OK, marquee tool, right click, deselect. And if you feel it's too far off, you can of course grab the move tool and arrow key it over, or just use your mouse to drag it. And I am rather happy with that positioning, so I'll call this the little lump. Now we aren't quite done with the backgrounds, but I'm going to go ahead and drop in our text layer. So create a new layer at the top, Control G, call this the text. Right click, let's make this violet, we haven't used that yet. I'm going to go over to our text tool, make sure we are using white, go ahead and drop that down at 79 pixels. And we do not want lorem ipsum, we want rules. Go ahead and drag that across, make sure it is centered. It is. Now right click, blending options, go over to outer glow, and we want 75, 0, 2, and 4. We can delete this extra layer, and we can collapse this rows or this text group, because now our text layer is done. Alright, now we're going to return back to this dust. We will drag it in, drop it at about there, swap it to color dodge with the opacity at about 40%. Now we'll do Control T and move this around a bit until we have it as we want it. And then we can of course make some adjustments if we need to. So with the lasso tool, we can come in and delete any ones we do not like. So I'll delete that one, and that one, just to leave most of these small particles in place. Now we can go ahead and add in our little glowing rectangles. So come over to miscellaneous decor, create a new layer, Control G. Let's call this glowing squares, that's more appropriate. Go over to our rectangle tool, hold Shift as you drag it to create a perfect square. Make sure it has a white fill, then right click, blending options, add a outer glow. We want 78 for this one, 14, and 5. Now, it doesn't really matter if you name these or not, because they're already in their own little folder. And I'm just going to scatter these across randomly. So I'll put one there, a bit smaller though. So one like that. Then Control J, Control T. Let's put one over there, and then Control J, Control T, and then one all the way by its lonesome down there. Next, we can go ahead and collapse the miscellaneous decor because we are done with that. There's only a couple of steps left with the base area, and this design is finished. I know what you're thinking if you made it this far into the video. You are probably exhausted of hearing my voice. I know I would be. Anyway, we're going to come over to our space right above the noise texture. Come over to rectangle tool. Stroke will be that pink, and we'll have the dotted line as our stroke option. Go ahead and drag that across like so. Make this, say, 2 pixels. Yep, that looks good to me. And I might actually enlarge this a bit more. Click check mark, Control T, Shift as you move it to get perfect 15-degree angles. And then I will leave one at about there, and then maybe one right about there, and make sure that one is clipped as well. Let's call this the bottom left dotted line, and we'll call this the top right dotted line. Alright, we are finally on the last step. So come over to our space right below these textures. Let's call this the sparkles. I can't think of anything else at the moment. And drop that in. Let's go over to our brush. And just like the template itself and the fonts, I'll also have a link to the brush pack available for download in the video description. Now what we'll be using is these splatter brushes, and we'll be using the color blue for them. We're going to click a few times, that is too large, to get them as we like them. You can see that was a bit too heavy, that's a bit too heavy, a bit too heavy. So it takes some playing around to get it as you like it. That's okay, we can drop the opacity some, and then that should work. Now, to actually save this banner, we're going to go over to the rectangular marquee tool, highlight over the entire thing, go to Edit, Copy Merged, File, New, Create, Control V, delete the backgrounds, and from here you can either do File, Export, Save for Web, or File, Save As, and then select PNG. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm sorry it went on for so long. I normally get this kind of stuff wrapped up in under 20 minutes, but for some reason we pushed this way past that. I'll have a link to another video tutorial popping up on screen for another great design, and I hope you all have an awesome day.